SINP, Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program. They did the most wonderful thing a few weeks back. They decided to include many more NOCs in their demand list. Well, earlier they had about 20, 21 odd, 22 odd NOCs in their demand list. And suddenly one morning we had nearly 200 new NOCs added to their demand list. Now what that did was suddenly more people could obviously create their expression of interest on their portal, and more people were applying. More people were given the opportunities because Saskatchewan has been quite aggressive, has been quite active over the last few weeks. We have been seeing a draw every week, and that also brought many more applicants into the fold. That also brought more confused people into the fold. That also brought more questions, more queries, more confusions, and therefore this video. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about all the different pain points that Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program has. We're going to talk about different confusions that people have in their heads. We're going to talk about different areas or pitfalls that you should avoid when you are applying for Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program. Stay tuned for more. Hi, welcome back. I'm Kubeir and welcome to my channel. Today's subject, Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, but the pain points, but the areas of concern, but the points which basically confuse people as to what has to be done in this program. So let's take this from the top. International Skilled Workers Stream is what we're going to talk about today. Under the International Skilled Workers Stream, they have two different or other subcategories. The first one is Express Entry. The second one is OID, which is Occupation in Demand. The difference between these two, not much, except that under Express Entry, as it's obvious, you need to have an Express Entry profile, okay? But if you cannot have a profile because you're not eligible in Express Entry, you can then create your expression of interest under the OID stream, which is Occupation in Demand stream. So the grid point remains the same, the eligibility Saskatchewan points remain the same, just that you have an option even if you do not have an Express Entry profile. What will happen is once you get your nomination, in Express Entry you can add 600 points to your application, to your profile, and thereby get your ITA. OID basically means once you get your nomination, you will go the paper application route, whereby you will fill lots of forms which are available on the Saskatchewan website as per the checklist, and you will send a paper application to CIC. This is primarily the difference between the two. Now, let's talk about the areas of concern, areas which is creating a lot of confusion for people. Saskatchewan is one of those provinces which insist that your education and your work experience should be in the same field, should be in the same line. And they say it very clearly on their website when you are creating your expression of interest. They're quite strict about it actually. So let's take a quick look at the Saskatchewan website to see where exactly does it talk about work experience and education being in the same field. So if you come to the eligibility section here, it will tell you that your work experience must be in the field of your completed post-secondary education. Again, it says your work experience must be directly related to your occupation and education. So this basically we are looking at eligibility for Saskatchewan Express Entry. This is where it says that the field of education and work experience has to be same. So that's where it will show you on the Saskatchewan website. We have seen very often that the applications have been refused where the field of education or the line of education was not matching with their work experience. So please be careful when you're trying to find your expression of interest. Their website actually mentions very clearly the kind of education you must have in order to be eligible under specific NOCs. So do pay attention to those NOCs. Do pay attention to those specific requirements that is mentioned for each NOC. For example, 1311, which is a very popular NOC, which is for accounting technicians and bookkeepers. This has a very specific requirement whereby Saskatchewan says that you must have completed a minimum of 2-year diploma program in accounting, which includes specialized courses in automated accounting, taxation, financial and cost accounting, etc., etc., etc. So the Saskatchewan website actually mentions the specific courses that you must have completed in your education, which should be at least a 2-year diploma, at least. Could be more, could be a bachelor's degree, could be a master's degree, but should be at least a 2 years diploma, which you should have completed all these courses. Similarly, for IT NOCs, 173, 2174, 2175, again, they have specific requirements in terms of education. You must have completed a minimum 3-year program in computer science, information technology, computer science systems, or a related discipline in integrated multimedia or computing science. Now, they've said it very, very clearly as to what kind of degrees or diplomas or programs they will accept. They have further mentioned computer science engineering program will not be considered. Unfortunately, so any engineering program that you might have completed, that will not be eligible for this particular NOC, if that's your NOC. So I know it's a real deal breaker for a lot of you out there, but unfortunately that's how it is. Further, there could also be a licensing or a certification requirement. Now again, let me take the example of the IT related NOCs, specifically 2173, 2174, 2175. There is a further requirement that they need to obtain a certification from CIPS, which is Canadian Association of Information Technology Professionals. They need to obtain the certification. Likewise, for lots of other NOCs, there would be a requirement to achieve or rather to obtain a certification or a license from their regulatory bodies in Saskatchewan. The best source, obviously, you have to go back to the Saskatchewan website. You have to check specific requirements that might be applicable for your NOCs. Certain regulatory bodies will take a long time to process these certifications. For example, CIPS SIPs will take anywhere between 8 to 12 months to provide you with the certification. Similarly, the regulatory body which provides the early childhood educator certification can take 4 to 5 months to process their certification. Therefore, you don't have to apply for these certifications in advance. I mean, if you do it, well and good. If you're expecting an ITA soon, by all means, go ahead and apply for it. But you don't have to have it in hand when you're applying, when you're creating your expression of interest. Because what happens is once you file your expression of interest, it asks you, do you have professional certification for this particular NOC? You cannot say yes if you don't have it, so you will say no, but that doesn't mean you are exempted from providing one. What will happen is once you get your ITA, you immediately should apply for your certification. You can continue to apply for your application. You can submit your application with the proof that you have applied for the certification. That's enough to submit the application. Once you have received your certification, your license from the regulatory body, you can then send it to Saskatchewan website, Saskatchewan authorities through their email address, and they will update your record and continue with the processing of your application. Do keep in mind that they will not process your nomination unless they have received the required certification from your side. So it's a mandatory requirement. You will need to provide it, but you do not have to hold on to your application. You do not have to apply in advance if you don't want to. You can apply for these certifications, these licenses once you get your ITA, and you can submit your application to Saskatchewan just having provided the proof that you have applied for these licensing or certifications. Also, about work experience, there is another worrying concern that a lot of people are facing. The requirement of Saskatchewan expression of interest or Saskatchewan program is that you should have work experience, or rather you can claim points for work experience only in one NOC. So when you are creating your expression of interest, it basically asks you how many years of work experience do you have in the qualifying NOC, and then it asks you for which NOC are you applying for, and you have to choose. There is only an option for choosing one NOC. So there shouldn't be a confusion about it, but apparently it is, because people may have moved occupations, they have moved careers, they may have moved jobs, and there could be a change in their NOC. They unfortunately cannot combine their work experience in different NOCs because the portal doesn't allow you to do that. So when you claim work experience of 10 years, then your work experience of 10 years should be in one NOC. It could be with different employers, that is not a problem, but it should be in the same NOC. You could have different designations, that's also fine, but it has to be in the same NOC. So that's a very important factor. Another important factor to keep in mind is that Saskatchewan calculates work experience in the years, and the year, basically 1 year is equal to 12 months. They specified it very, very clearly. So for example, you have 8 years and 8 months of work experience. That does not make it 9 years. That is still 8 years of work experience because you haven't completed the 9th year. So please be mindful when you're creating an expression of interest, because at times you might get it wrong. You might sort of think it's 9 years, thereby you're claiming incorrect points in your expression of interest. So if you do get your ITA with incorrect points and you apply or you submit your application, there could be a bit of trouble there. The risk is basically 350 Canadian dollars, which you need to pay as a fee for Saskatchewan application. But in addition to that, there could be a lot of time you will be wasting in terms of waiting for a result, and which could not be in your favor. So please be mindful of that. Please be aware that you can claim points for only one knock and for completed years of work experience, not for the years that you haven't completed your work experience. Okay, let's quickly also take a look at where the ECA requirement has been specified on the Saskatchewan website. And here under eligibility again, it says so you have the minimum requirement is you have completed post-secondary education, training or apprenticeship that's comparable to the Canadian education system. So that's the requirement for the ECA. Now it says for all education. So it specifies for all education obtained outside Canada. So this basically means you need to get ECA for all your credentials. Because it says post-secondary here, which basically means you don't need your 10th and 12th to be assessed, but do get your bachelor's, diploma, master's degree, whatever degrees or credentials you have assessed when you apply for Saskatchewan, because it says for all education obtained outside Canada, such as an academic or technical degree, diploma or certificate, you must submit an educational credential assessment from a designated organization as per IRCC's list of approved organizations. So it's pretty obvious that the reason why they want you to provide an ECA is because it provides an equivalency of the Canadian education. And based on that, you are claiming your points, right? And your grid point, you do claim your points when you file your expression of interest. You do mention whether you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a diploma, based on which you're given points. Now, ECA is required for you to claim those points, so that's fine. But the requirement for you to provide all education and the respective degree, diploma for that education is because remember, they also check whether your work experience is in the same field as your education. Now, obviously, there is a requirement for certain NOCs whereby you should have completed certain courses. You should have completed at least a 2-year diploma or a 2-year program or a 3-year program or a bachelor's degree. So there are specific requirements for lots of NOCs for certain education to have been completed. Now, the only way for Saskatchewan to have established that part of the assessment is only if you provide a complete ECA or you provide ECA for all your credentials. Let's also talk about Saskatchewan's proof of work experience requirement. So, if you see from their website, they've said very specifically that they want to see at least 3 different types of documents to prove your work experience. They have also given very specific requirement what they want to see in their reference letters. So your reference letters has to be very detailed. They have to be on the company letterhead. They have to include all your details in terms of your name, your joining date, the period of your work, the employment period, the number of hours you have worked or whether it was a full-time employment, and of course the roles and responsibilities, the duties that you have performed, because that will validate your NOC that you have chosen. That is obviously one of the most important factor. This document again has to be signed, has to be the contact details of the person who's signing, the signatory, the authority, the person who has the authority to sign this document could be your reporting manager, could be your HR, could be the owner of the company, could be a director, whoever it is. The name, the contact details should be mentioned, and obviously this has to be on the company letterhead. So this is the specific requirement that they have for a reference letter. What happens with people who cannot get a letter? Now that's a very tricky one, because as I said, Saskatchewan is very, very strict with their requirements. So for people who are not able to get a letter from your employer, you get into the gray area of the things. First, try and obtain proof which states that you cannot get it. So whether it's a company policy, if it's written, excellent. If not, send an email to your HR, to your boss, and let him respond back saying that they will not issue this letter to you. Then you have an alternative, or rather then you can exercise an alternative, whereby you can ask your manager to write you this letter in their personal capacity, get it notarized. But in addition to that, you must make sure you provide a lot of additional supporting documents to prove that you were working for this company, you did perform these duties that you were saying that you performed, that you did work for this period of time, and these are your duties and responsibilities. You could take your job description from your HR, you could take an official job description, you can go to your company's website and get a screenshot or a link of the job posting which is similar to yours or exactly like yours, because that will also list your job roles and responsibilities. So there are several ways, several alternative ways. I know it can be a difficult one, but guys, you have to keep in mind the onus is on you. You know, it's your responsibility, and you have to prove to Saskatchewan that your work experience is genuine, that you did perform these duties, that you were working for this period of time, and you were working for this employer. So the responsibility is yours. It's an unfortunate situation if your employer is not going to give you the document you need, but it is up to you to sort of find ways to prove to Saskatchewan that your work experience is genuine. And you need to, as I said, you need to provide at least 3 different documents. So try and provide your employment offer, reference letter, relieving letter, appraisals if you had, promotion letters if you had, letters of accomplishment, pay stubs, salary slips, salary payment vouchers, bank statements that show your salary credits. Please provide all of this, okay? The more you provide, the better it is. All this is going to support your application. It will make it will strengthen the credibility of your application, and all this will help your process, your document, your application process smoothly and fast. In addition to that, Saskatchewan also asks for one government issued document that proves your employment. Now, what do they mean by that? For example, there are lots of people who work in different countries. So for example, for people out there in the Middle East, UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, people who are expatriates from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and you're working in Middle East. Now, you obviously will have Iqama, you will have a work permit, you will have the government issued visa which specifies that you are working for a company, for an employer, and whether you call it Iqama or a work permit, etc., etc. All this is a government issued document. You will have a labor card, you will have a work permit card, which again specifies your status in that respective country, and thereby also is a government issued identification document, and it specifies your status in that in the country. In addition to that, people in India, Pakistan, respective countries, you can also look at government issued documents. For example, employee provident fund, pension fund. Again, these are the documents which prove that you are working with a company and you are working with an employer. You can also provide Form 16s, which is issued by your company, and these tax documents also help you support your employment and state that you were working for this employer. Now, what happens if you are not able to provide this government document? Does it jeopardize your application? Will your application get refused, etc., etc.? All these thoughts will come into your mind. First of all, though it's a requirement and it helps support your application, it makes your document stronger, it makes your application stronger. I know of a lot of applications. My company has filed a lot of applications. We have a lot of clients whose applications were processed without having submitted any government document, because we were able to support the application. We were able to explain why we do not have a government document, because there are tons and tons of private companies, smaller companies, small scale industries, which basically give you a cash salary, which do not have a provident fund, which might not issue you a Form 16, which basically means you are in your home country and you do not have any work permit. So what are you going to do in such scenarios? Yes, Saskatchewan understands that. They're not that brutal with the whole scenario. So as long as you're able to explain that the reason why you cannot provide a government issued document to support your employment, that's fine. It's all right. So don't get worried about it. Explain it, okay? And that's absolutely fine. Also, for the factors of salary, Saskatchewan does prefer to see pay stubs, pay slips, salary credits in your bank statement or bank statement that show salary credit. But if you're being paid in cash, that's fine, acceptable, that's all right. Just provide pay slips, provide a salary certificate, provide a cash voucher, provide a copy of the ledger in your company, which basically where you sign when you have received your cash payment or cash salary. Give them proof, give them evidence. All they want to see is that your employment is genuine. All they want to see is that you deserve the work experience points that you're claiming for. All they want to see is that your work experience was paid. If you can prove all this, if you can provide them the documents that they're looking for, your application is going to be fine. You will have no problem at all. So please make sure you provide them what the documents they're asking for, and you will be on your way before you know it. Okay? Another very, very important point that I would like to talk about, or rather, which is a very, very big area of concern, is the proof of funds. Guys, come on. They have said it so clearly, and they have mentioned it so clearly on the website. They have said very specifically that your proof of funds has to have an age of 3 months of being available to you in your account, or however it was available to you, for at least 3 months before you have submitted your application, and these funds should continue to be available to you for the entire duration of the application. That's the requirement. Okay, so what does that mean? That basically means that on the day you submit your application, on the day you pay your fee of $350 to Saskatchewan authorities, on the day you press the submit button after having uploaded all your documents, on that particular day, the funds should have been available in your account with you for at least 3 months prior to that particular date. So for example, today is the day that I'm submitting my application. These funds that is required for my application, that should have been available to me in my account for at least 3 months before today. Okay, prior to today, earlier than today. So this is the basic requirement that they have, and that these funds should continue to be available to me in my account for the whole duration of the application. Mind you, in a lot of cases, Saskatchewan does come back and ask you for an updated proof of funds. In that case, what they do is they check if your funds have dropped below the required amount, and if that does happen, then your application may be refused. Okay. The kind of funds that they accept has been very clearly mentioned on their website. They will accept shares, bonds, mutual funds, pension funds, surrender values of life insurance policies, cash in the account, of course, fixed deposits. They will accept all these funds, right? But they have to be available in your account for 3 months prior to the date of your application submission. Please prepare your funds. Once you have the funds in your account for at least 1 month, then go ahead and submit your expression of interest. Why are we saying that have it for at least 1 month? Is because if you've already had it for 1 month and then submitting your expression of interest, then the chances are that even if you get your ITA in the next draw, you would already have 1 month of age of those funds. Add to that another 60 days for the application submission deadline, and you will be pretty much safe with your age of the proof of funds requirement. Also, I keep saying it again and again, you must maintain these funds in your account for the entire duration of your application process. It has happened very recently that somebody withdrew money from their account during the process because they needed it for an emergency purpose. Obviously, then the funds, the level dropped, the amount dropped in their account. They did deposit the amount back into their account, but unfortunately, Saskatchewan asked them for an updated proof of funds statement. And when they did provide, Saskatchewan refused their application because they realized that the funds had dropped below the required amount, and then the funds were not maintained for the entire duration of the process. So Saskatchewan can get very, very strict about this. They are very strict about this. So please maintain the funds for the entire duration. Please ensure that on the day you're filing your application, the funds have been available with you for 3 months. Now, gift deed. I know a lot of people keep asking why gift deed is not acceptable. Is gift deed acceptable or not? So let me clarify this gift deed issue with people. First of all, gift deed is not a mandated document. Nowhere in the immigration law, nowhere in the Canadian immigration law is gift deed a requirement, or it has been specified as a document that is expected from you. What exactly is gift deed? If you know that in express entry or in federal skilled worker or in the federal process of your application, there is no requirement of age of funds or of proof of funds requirement, as in the age. You do not need to maintain any age. They do ask you for 6 months bank statements or 6 months average balances, but that is primarily to check if these funds have been borrowed or if they are free from any lines and that they are unencumbered by debt. That is the requirement for CIC. So they do not have any age of funds. You provide gift deed to provide as an evidence as to where the money has come into your account. So that is primarily the purpose of gift deed in your express entry application, in your federal skilled worker application, in your CIC application when you process for your permanent residency. But gift deed in Saskatchewan serves no purpose. You see, first of all, Saskatchewan has a specific requirement that your fund should be 3 months old. That is the basic fundamental requirement. The gift deed is used to prove that the funds belong to you and that the source of funds is a gift. In this case, Saskatchewan doesn't care. They want to make sure the funds have been available with you. So how does gift deed solve any purpose in this? You use gift deed to show that you have got the money from your brother, sister, parents as a gift. And you use this when the money is deposited in your account in the nearer to your application date. In this particular case, with Saskatchewan, they don't care. If the funds are not in your account for the last 3 months before the date of your application submission, they don't care. They don't want your application. They will refuse it. So how does gift deed help? It does not help. Therefore, gift deed is not acceptable. So please drop that idea from your head and please stop getting confused about gift deeds. It's not acceptable. It doesn't make any sense. It has no relevance in your application with Saskatchewan. I hope that clarifies this confusion about gift deeds. Finally, what I can tell you is that Saskatchewan is a great province. It has been very aggressive. They have extended the opportunity to tons and tons of people who were earlier being deprived of the entire process by including nearly 200 new NOCs. They basically flung the doors open to many people who may have otherwise not found their way through the PR process. So you can only thank Saskatchewan for having done this. It came out of the blue. It was pretty amazing. And now that it has happened, applicants, we have to be very mindful of what their requirements are. Keep it make the process easier for yourself. Every single thing has been mentioned on their website. All the requirements, all the documentation that they need, everything has been mentioned on their website. If you follow that, you will not have a problem. Okay, I assure you that. They do take time in processing. Their average processing times could vary anywhere from 6 to 10 months. Add to that the requirement of certification and licensing, it could be pretty long. But once your application is in process, you're pretty much sure that it's going to see the other end, if obviously all your documentation is ordered. So all that is a good part of the application. Another thing that you have to keep in mind is that you have to express your intention to live in the province. You have to maintain this intention to live in the province throughout your application, while you get your nomination, and even after you get your ITA from CIC in express entry later on, and while you file your application to CIC. Your intention to live in Saskatchewan should be maintained throughout the process. should be maintained. Even when you arrive in Canada, you must maintain your intention to live in Saskatchewan, because what is the point for a province to give you the nomination if you're not going to live there, right? So keep that in mind. The reason why provinces give nominations, why they nominate people, is because they want people to come and live in their provinces. They want them to, establish themselves, and they are looking forward to welcoming you guys when you get there. So do keep that in mind, and you should not have any problem whatsoever. Well, I have basically covered everything that I could think of, which is a pain point or a concern for Saskatchewan. I think I've covered everything, but if I haven't covered it, please, you're most welcome to come back to our Facebook groups. You're most welcome to come back to our Saskatchewan specific Facebook group. Post your questions there, post your queries there. We have tons of members who have gone through the process, who are already going through the process. Our moderator team, myself, whoever can, will share our experiences, will share our suggestions to help you, get through this process. Please, if you like this video, if you think this video was of value, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. It's encouraging to see if you're really looking forward to these videos, because it helps me create more content for you. And do share it with your friends who are also going through this process. There are tons of WhatsApp groups out there where people are sharing these information and suggestions. And if you see something which is incorrect, share this video as to put them on the right track, and they will be on their way as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope to do this again very soon. Until then, bye.